Hello friends, my name is Zekko and welcome to a brand new video. Today we are talking Leeds United, what they did, what they have done and what they're going to do next. We're going to explore the transfers that they have made, who they've let go, who they've brought in and where I think they could improve. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it with a like and subscribe if you haven't for more content like this coming very soon. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload and let's get right into Leeds. Before we get into Leeds in the transfer market, we need to have a look at what they did last season. They barely staved off relegation and they finished just above the relegation zone with 38 points, losing 18 matches and conceding 79 goals. With a goal difference of -37, they had one of the worst records in the Premier League to date. They were absolutely destroyed by injuries, mainly to Patrick Bamford and to a couple of their centre-backs. Calvin Phillips was also one of the casualties of the season, and they just couldn't find a way to score a lot of goals and play that casual Leeds, or that non-casual Leeds style, where they were energetic, frenetic, and just downright mad. And I say mad in the best possible way. The way they play football is extremely entertaining, but it can lead to conceding a lot of goals. And when they kept trying to play that high intensity football, sometimes some of the players just couldn't keep up with it. And in the end, they just conceded and lost far too many games to keep Marcelo Bielsa in charge. So they let him go. They brought in Jesse Marsch, who has really stabled the ship. He's really calmed everything down. He's got them playing an interesting way of football. He's got them playing in very much the style of his previous clubs, RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg. They have models utilising young players with a lot of energy, much like Bielsa, but in a bit more of a structural format rather than all gung-ho, all running all the time. I like the way that he plays football and he managed to keep them in the Premier League, so that's a massive win for them. Rafinha was obviously a massive part of that, especially scoring a goal in the last game of the season to keep them up. It really was looking dicey towards the end, but they did manage to stay up and they have another season at the very least in the Premier League. So let's see what they're doing with their transfer window going into this next Premier League season and how they can improve and stop themselves from being in that relegation fight once more. Let's touch on the outgoings first, and I think it was going to be inevitable. Leeds fans, talk to me, because I really do think that you might agree with me when I say that Rafinha was destined to leave the club. I think he was going to be sought after by too many clubs, and in the end he was. Chelsea, Arsenal both coming in for him, but in the end he has his heart set on Barcelona, moving from Leeds for around about 70 million euros. I think that's around about 56 million pounds, probably with add-ons, I'm not too sure, but he is leaving the club. I believe it has already been announced and he will no longer be a Leeds player. So that's a good chunk of money that they have for him, and he scored a good lot of goals for them as well. So he's going to be something that's key to be needing to be replaced. Jesse Marsch, I'm sure, will be looking into the transfer market to try and find some replacements for him, and that's coming up later in the video because he has found some. But Rafinha is a big hole to fill, and I'm sure Leeds fans would have been hoping they wouldn't lose anyone else. However, they were of course approached with a bid from Manchester City to sign Calvin Phillips, one of their best central midfielders at the club and probably the best. He's playing for England at the moment. He's a regular player for them. He plays week in, week out for Leeds if he can and if he's fit. But Man City came in with around about a £45 million bid, and it's something that Leeds couldn't turn down. Probably for Calvin Phillips' future, and also because they probably wouldn't get any more money for him later on down the line. I think it was a good move for Calvin. I think it was a good move for Man City as well. As for Leeds, yes, they got some money for him, but it's again going to be a big hole to fill. So it's going to be a real task for Jesse Marsch and his scouts and Leeds as a club to try and replace these two integral parts in the squad. Not to mention that Patrick Bamford has still been quarrelling with injury. Daniel James isn't really doing it. You've got the likes of wingers who aren't really fit and firing. You've got a back four which has leaked goals occasionally, and a midfield that doesn't really know where it's going. I think the goalkeeping position is perfectly fine, but these two key holes where Phillips have left and Rafinha has left are going to leave gaping holes in this Leeds side. So it's really crucial this transfer market gets up and running and gets going. Let's see where they went. To replace Calvin Phillips and fill that void of defensive midfield / midfield position, they went for two people. The first one is Tyler Adams from RB Leipzig, a young 23-year-old American prospect who is looking to be an integral part in this Leeds United side. He was coming through the ranks at RB Leipzig. He looks very, very promising, energetic, he's got a good pass on him, and he's got a decent tackle in him. He plays in defensive midfield, and he has a bundle of energy. He'll be sitting in a defensive midfield position in a system that I think Jesse Marsch will be opting to use next season. It's a 4-4-2 with two holding six midfielders, and I really do think that Tyler Adams will be one of the best pivots of this, along with the player that I'm going to mention next. Tyler Adams has a lot of quality and a lot of promise going forwards. It's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to the Premier League and whether Jesse Marsch will be able to utilise his energy going up and down the pitch, helping Leeds to stay structurally intact and sound. It's going to be interesting. He's got a good pass on him, he's got a good range of passing, and he's got a decent tackle on him. It's going to be interesting to see him in the Premier League. Well, as this, they also signed Marko Rog from Bayern Munich. Now you might think, well, how have they got him from Bayern Munich? Well, he's 25 years old and he's got a lot of quality about him. Bayern signed him as a younger player, obviously, and he just hasn't made the starting lineup. Julian Nagelsmann cannot get him into the side for love nor money, and I think that he just has players in front of him in his position. So I think he's made the correct decision and decided to go and get football elsewhere. Especially with the World Cup coming up, he might have some hopes of getting into his national team. And I really do think that Leeds is a good prospect. He will play week in, week out, and I think that Jesse Marsch might have been able to convince him that Leeds is the best place to go. He will sit in a defensive midfield position with Tyler Adams, I believe, and I think they'll combine quite well together. They both have different skill sets. Marko Rog is more of a playmaker than a holding defensive midfielder. Tyler Adams is more of a box-to-box midfielder, and I do think they might complement each other a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see how they fit into this Leeds side. Again, I'm guessing that it's going to be a 4-4-2 because that's Jesse Marsch's preferred system, especially with these two defensive midfielders, and I think they're going to be able to do the job of Calvin Phillips. I do like them, and I'm going to be excited to see how they fit into this Leeds side going forwards. But of course, they also have that hole in right wing, don't they? They've lost Rafinha, they need to sort it out. Let's see what they've done. Leeds have got their money from Calvin Phillips and from Rafinha, and they are not messing about. They have signed Luis Sinisterra from Feyenoord. Now, he's had a good season last season. He had 30 appearances, he scored 12 goals, and he got 7 assists, which is not a bad return at all for a 23-year-old winger, and I really do think he's going to light up the Premier League in this Leeds side. He's quick, he's pacey, he's got a decent bit of skill about him, he's got a good touch, and clearly he has an eye for goal. I really do think that he's going to be able to take that Rafinha spot and possibly not utilise it with the spotlight that Rafinha had on him, but I think he will be a cog in this Leeds side that you're starting to see building. You got the two defensive midfielders, now you're starting to get these exciting attacking players coming through the door. Sinisterra is one to look out for, and I really do think that he will make some waves into the Premier League going forwards, especially if they can get that ball to him on the right hand side or left hand side. He can play on both wings. Occasionally he's played as a striker once, I believe, but he's mainly down that left hand side. I believe he can play on the right as well. He's quite dynamic, he's exciting, he's quick, and he's one that Leeds fans are going to be desperate to see on that pitch. Going back to one of the clubs he recently managed, that is RB Salzburg, he has also picked up Rasmus Christensen, a right back, 24 years old. He has good quality, he's composed on the ball, and he's got a good tackle about him. I spoke previously about Leeds' poor defensive record, and he's definitely going to help out with that. You have a lot of players trying to do same positions. You've got Stuart Dallas trying to fill in to the holes where he needs to. You've also got the injuries to the central defenders that need to be filled sometimes. Injuries just in general are a massive problem with Leeds, and they were last season. So I do think that bringing in a defender, albeit I'm not too sure whether they needed a right back, but Christensen, it definitely is a good option. He's not too bad with the ball at his feet, he's got good pace, he's got good stamina, and I think he's going to fit into this Leeds side perfectly. Again, one that Jesse Marsch has handpicked from his former side, so I'm sure he will have some inside information about how he can be utilised in this Leeds squad. Not a bad signing at all. We keep going because Leeds have made more. And up last, we have Brendan Aronson, coming from, yet again, RB Salzburg, a player, American, 21 years old. He's an attacking midfielder, one that, again, Jesse Marsh must have seen, handpicked, and wanted to bring over to Leeds. We were really getting an American influence in this squad. Tyler Adams, Brendan Aronson, and he's an exciting player. I haven't seen too much of him, but he's got a decent touch on him, he's got a decent pass, and he's quite mobile. Something that I think Leeds need, especially if they're going to be trying to get up and down the pitch quickly. They're going to need to be defensively sound, and they're also going to need to be able to hit teams on the counter-attack. I don't think they're going to be breaking down teams all too much. I think it's going to be very heavy metal or gung-ho. Not necessarily in the Marcelo Bielsa way, but in a more structural way, and I think Brendan Aronson will help with that. He's quite young, so you've got to give him some time. I think he will adapt to the Premier League, and I think he'll get a couple of goals and a couple of assists, which will help Leeds out going into the future. Again, Jesse Marsh will have seen this player and will know his qualities going forwards, and I think they're going to be able to utilise him in an interesting way. Leeds, if you haven't already noticed, have made a lot of signings. A lot of them have been from teams that Jesse Marsh either knows from the Bundesliga or knows that he has managed himself, which I think is brilliant because he's going to be able to bring his influence, his style of play, and they're going to understand what he wants from them. These are exciting signings, and Leeds have been very proactive in the market. As I've been rattling off these players, I hope you've been noticing their ages. He's really bringing the age of the squad way down. All of them under the age of 25. That means energy, that means passion, and that means stamina. Things that I think this Leeds side are going to desperately need and are going to really benefit from going forwards. Energy is a crucial part of this game. Football in general requires impending amounts of energy. Just unbelievable amounts of running, time and stamina, and this is what Jesse Marsh is building, a young squad, one that is willing to work hard, do well, and I think that eventually the hard work will bring Leeds back up the table. I think it's this hard work and determination that's going to be one of the key factors of this Leeds side going forwards. Bringing in the likes of these younger 21-year-old attacking midfielder, you've got a 23-year-old defensive midfielder, 25-year-old central defensive midfielder. All of these players are going to be working together, and I really do think that it's the energy that's going to be brought through in this Leeds side that's going to make them and make the difference possibly for them to stay in the Premier League and climb that table next season. So those are the signings they have made, but where can they improve? Where did they go next? Well, I really do think that they should be looking at the striking options. Patrick Bamford was extremely injured last season, and I do mean extremely injured. He missed 30 games last season, which is really unthinkable when they don't have a backup. Daniel James was their backup, and he seriously struggled trying to go forwards, trying to hold the ball up and trying to get on the end of passes and through balls. Yes, he's fast, yes, but he gets muscled off the ball a bit too easily. Striking isn't, or being a striker isn't his natural position, and I think he was being asked to do a job that he just couldn't fulfill for this squad, which is one of the reasons why I think they failed to score as many goals as they would like. So Patrick Bamford needs backup, and he possibly needs some help. So they need to try and find a striker. Somehow, some way, they need to try and get someone through the door. One of the names being linked is Arnaud Kalimuendo. He is a 20-year-old French striker who is playing at PSG. He was on loan at RC Lens in the start of last season, and he played 34 matches for them and scored 12 goals. He's got a good bit of pace about him, he's got a good touch, and he has prospect for the future. So it's definitely one that I think could get done. PSG like letting people out. They like just selling off their assets and bringing in those big names. That transfer strategy is changing, but I'm not sure whether they have enough space for Kalimuendo, and he might want to go and find football elsewhere. And if a Premier League club comes calling and it saves him from going back into the lower ranks of League 1, I wonder whether he would be tempted by the move, especially if possibly a release clause was placed in there, or if there was a buyback option with PSG if Leeds had him and he went off and was a hit. I'm not too sure how the deal would get done, but I do think it's something that could be explored by Leeds. He is currently being linked, and I think he's a pretty decent striker. My worry with him is I think that with Patrick Bamford, I do think that they need a little bit more experience, a little bit more tenacity and just gamesmanship. I think Kalimuenda might be quite raw and might not be the thing that Leeds are looking for, especially if they might be dragged into a relegation battle. When you desperately need a goal, you need that little bit of arrogance, that little bit of air of authority and just experience that will bring you through a match. I'm not sure he has that quite yet, just simply on the lack of game time that he's had and how young he is. Perhaps looking somewhere else might be a better fit, but he's the player that's currently being linked the strongest, so I thought I'd place him here. Overall, what do I think? Well, I think Leeds have done an absolutely fantastic job. Yes, they've had to let go of Phillips. Yes, they've had to let go of Rafinha, but I think that was inevitable, and I think if you're a Leeds fan, please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think you'd be expecting them to leave at some point. So I think the business that you've done in the transfer market and the business that Leeds themselves have done in the transfer market is absolutely sensational. They've brought the age of the squad way down. They've brought energetic, talented players, midfielders. They've brought in a right back. They've brought in a winger who is extremely exciting, and that's what Leeds is, right? It's exciting, it's high tempo, energetic football that people can enjoy, and I think that's what really people buy into with Leeds. The defensive problems could be mitigated by that right back, and I'm sure injuries playing a part in last season might not feature this season. So I really do think that Leeds have done a brilliant job in the transfer market this window. I do think they need a striker. They desperately need to be looking for that main striker to help Bamford because they have almost no cover there whatsoever. And if they don't find any cover for Bamford, I really do think it's going to be the same old story last season, even with the new signings. You do need someone to be tapping in those goals, and Bamford is great at what he does, but when he gets injured, they don't have anyone else. They need that striker. But as for everywhere else, I really do think they've done a fantastic job. And I can't wait to see the way they play in the formation they do with Jesse Marsch at the helm and the players that he's brought in. It's going to be an exciting time for Leeds United if you can get that striker through. But even without, I can expect them playing high energetic, high tempo, good football. Exciting times. Looking forward to the start of the season for Leeds United. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it with a like and subscribe if you haven't for more content like this coming very soon. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and let me know in the comments what you think about Leeds United. What do you think about that transfer window? Leeds fans, are you here? Please tell me how you're feeling going into next season. Do you think you need anyone else? Do you think you've done good business? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. You can also let me know on Twitter at Zekko64. That's where I post all of my videos, but of course you can also know that by hitting that notification bell like I said. And yeah, that's it from me for today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care of yourselves and bye-bye.